At a classic car auction in the United States, a Ford Bronco crosses the block and sells for $400,000. The crowd applauds. The buyer is delighted. But that Bronco hides a secret that would unsettle almost everyone in the room. Its body, the steel shell that gives it its shape, its identity, its soul, was not born in Detroit in the 1960s. It was stamped, brand new, in a factory in China, only months before the sale. This is not a fake. It is not a kit car. It is something the classic car world has never quite had to reckon with before. A genuinely new body for a vehicle that stopped being built decades ago, pressed from fresh steel, panel by panel, to the original's exact dimensions. And it is happening at a scale almost no enthusiast realizes. In a single enormous factory north of Shanghai, workers are no longer simply restoring the icons we love. They are building them again from nothing. So how is this even possible? And does it rescue our passion or quietly threaten the very idea of what makes a classic car real? To understand why this matters so much, you first have to understand the quiet crisis facing every classic car on Earth. Time. Specifically, rust. Every vintage car is slowly losing a war against corrosion. The cars enthusiasts most adore, the early Datsun 240Z, the Toyota Corolla AE86, the first-generation Ford Bronco, were never engineered to survive half a century. When the 240Z was released in the early 1970s, Nissan prioritized its beautiful styling over real corrosion protection, and the factory rust proofing was minimal. Worse, its body was full of small pockets and crevices where water collects and simply cannot drain. The result is brutal. Clean, rust-free examples of these cars are disappearing a little more every single year, and the survivors climb further out of reach of ordinary enthusiasts. For decades, the answer to this was restoration. You found a rusty original and you painstakingly cut out the rot, fabricated or sourced replacement panels, and welded in new metal. But there was always a hard limit. Replacement panels for these older cars were only ever available sporadically, made in small batches, often of mediocre quality. And manufacturing an entirely new body shell for a specific vintage model was considered so expensive that, for all practical purposes, it was simply impossible. That was the wall every restorer eventually hit. And it is exactly that wall a company in China has just torn straight through. The company is called Jiangsu Juncheng Vehicle Industry, based in the town of Baoying, several hours north of Shanghai. And the first thing to understand is that this is not a restoration shop. It is a full-scale manufacturing facility, and what it does there genuinely defies belief. The process begins not with the new car, but with an old one. To recreate a classic body, Juncheng needs two original, unmodified examples, kept as straight and true as possible. This alone is a serious challenge, because almost none of the cars they build were ever sold new in mainland China. So even finding clean reference cars means hunting across the world. One of those two cars is then taken apart, piece by careful piece. The second is kept whole, as a master reference, to verify that every new panel they produce actually matches the factory's original dimensions. Then comes the painstaking part. Every single panel of that disassembled car is digitized with a three-dimensional scanner, capturing its exact shape down to the smallest curve. Engineers clean up that scan data, and then, for every panel on the car, they create a stamping die, a massive, precisely shaped steel tool that will press flat sheet metal into the final three-dimensional shape of a fender, a door, a roof, a hood. And the scale of this is staggering. A single car body is not a handful of panels. The AE86 and the 240Z each require more than 300 separate dies to produce one complete body shell. Across the two main buildings, the company keeps around 1,200 dies at the ready. And across everything they build, they have so many thousands of dies that the staff themselves admit they have lost count. Making just one of these dies is a feat in itself. They are produced in two ways. The more intricate ones are carved directly from solid blanks of high-strength steel by banks of computer-controlled CNC machines. And the program to cut a single complex die can run for 40 hours straight before a human being ever touches it. The largest dies, like the one for a hood's inner panel, can take around 48 hours of machining alone. The other method is sand casting, where a rough die shape is cast at another factory, a process that can take 2 months, and then refined on a CNC machine and finished entirely by hand. Because that is the secret hiding underneath all the machinery, the human hand. After a die comes off the CNC machine, it is rough, scarred with tool marks and ridges. A worker must then grind and polish it by hand for 6-7 hours or more, until the surface is mirror smooth, and they have a margin for error of fractions of a single millimeter. Take away too much, and the entire die, weeks of work, is ruined. Each finished die is then tested in a press, and the resulting stamped panel is scanned again and compared against the original 3D data to confirm it matches to specification before it is ever used for real.
And this program on this machine is running for 40 hours just to make this one die.
At this point, a reasonable person asks the obvious question. If this requires hundreds of hand-finished dies per car, thousands of hours of labor, and a worldwide hunt for reference vehicles, how on earth can a brand new body shell start at around $9,500? The answer is the most important part of the whole story, and it is what makes Juncheng almost impossible to compete with. This factory did not start out building classic cars. Its real business is stamping body panels and parts for China's enormous modern automotive industry. Fenders, doors, and replacement panels for current Chinese brand cars, and for vehicles only 5, 10, or 15 years old that their original makers no longer support. The entire colossal infrastructure, the presses, the CNC machines, the casting, the coating lines, the engineering knowledge, already existed, fully built and running at industrial scale. So when the company turned that same machinery, that same expertise, toward classic cars, it was not starting from zero. It was simply pointing an existing world-class manufacturing engine at a new target. That is why it can do, almost casually, what would be financially impossible anywhere else. A brand new AE86 or 240Z shell starts at around $9,500. The 1967 Mustang shell runs about $16,000. And because roughly 95% of the entire process is done in-house, under their own roofs, there is no chain of expensive outside suppliers taking a cut at every step. The price that should be impossible becomes merely astonishing. There is even a quiet poetry to it. The very same machines that stamp panels for disposable modern commuter cars are now being used by workers who are genuine enthusiasts to resurrect the legends those commuter cars could never hope to become. And here is where the story takes a turn that even skeptics find hard to argue with, because in at least one important way, these new bodies are not just as good as the originals, they are better. Consider again the rust that dooms so many of these cars. When the AE86 was built in the 1980s, its body was simply primed and painted at the factory. It was never hot-dip galvanized, and that is precisely why the AE86 became so notoriously prone to rotting away. The bodies coming out of this factory are different. They are galvanized and coated specifically to resist corrosion, every single panel given a protective treatment the original car never received. The steel is the same gauge as the factory original, so the weight stays close to stock, but the quality of the metal is higher, and the rust protection is in a different league entirely. In other words, a brand new AE86 body from this factory is engineered to survive in a way the real 1986 car never was. This is not, it turns out, some crude operation. The shells are electroplated, coated, and primed. Seams are sealed and smoothed by hand before paint. Each finished body is built up panel by panel, welded and finished by hand. A process that, in every modern factory the world over, is now done by robots. To watch it is to watch a kind of industrial craftsmanship that the rest of the car world has very nearly forgotten. And how did a Chinese manufacturing giant end up lovingly hand-building Datsuns and Toyotas in the first place? Almost by accident. The classic side of the business began a few years ago when members of the Land Rover Defender community asked if the factory could stamp a few replacement panels. The quality was so high that the requests kept growing, panel by panel, until they realized they were close to being able to build the entire car. So they did. From there they moved to the first generation Ford Bronco and have now built more than 600 Bronco bodies, year after year, shipping most of them to the United States. And then, to break into the world of sports cars, they chose the Toyota AE86, a car beloved across Asia, made legendary by the Japanese street racing comic and anime Initial D, despite the strange fact that it was never officially sold new in mainland China at all. But for all the brilliance of the machinery, this story cannot end on the factory floor, because the moment you can build a classic car brand new, you walk straight into the hardest question our hobby has ever faced. When does a car stop being restored and start being a replica? This is the uncomfortable gray area at the heart of everything Juncheng does. The company's own position is careful. It points out that the cars it builds are well over 25 years old, that it does not put the original manufacturer's badges on the bodies, and that, technically, these shells are sold for you to restore your existing car. But the question underneath refuses to go away. If you take the small rectangle of metal carrying a wrecked car's VIN number and weld it into an otherwise entirely brand new body, is that still a restoration of the old car? Or is it a new car, wearing a dead one's identity? And this is not a problem anyone can dismiss as uniquely Chinese or uniquely new. The classic world has quietly lived in this gray area for decades. Reproduction Mustang and Camaro bodies have been built for years. Fiberglass Cobra and Mercedes 300 SL bodies have long been accepted. Famous restoration houses already keep only the smallest fragments of a donor car, sometimes just the door handles, sometimes the firewall, and still call the result a restoration. Juncheng has not created this question. It has simply scaled it up so dramatically that the question can no longer be ignored. It is fair to say the road has not been entirely smooth. Some of the earliest bodies, the Bronco shells especially, drew real criticism online for panels that did not line up and welds that were not clean. One prototype, rushed to appear at a major American trade show, was a genuine misstep. But there is important context. The workers building these cars had, in many cases, never seen these vehicles in their entire lives, never driven one, never worked on one, never even assembled one into a finished, running machine. They are recreating, with astonishing fidelity, legends they have only ever known as data. And as they have refined each model, over 600 Broncos now, the quality has climbed steadily toward genuine factory specification. So we are left with the question, and no easy answer. On one side stands a quiet tragedy, that the soul of a classic car, the rust and the patina and the history, can now be erased and reborn, mass-produced, in a place that never knew these cars when they were new. On the other side stands something close to salvation, because the brutal truth is that these cars are vanishing. The 240Zs are rusting away and being scrapped far too often, and the ability to save one with a brand new fender, a new quarter panel, or even an entire new body, stamped from proper, rust-protected steel. That is, undeniably, how you keep these machines on the road for another generation. When a car can be reborn panel by panel, better than new, we are forced to decide what we were ever really preserving, the metal or the soul. There may be no clean answer, only the quiet truth that the machines we love will outlive their original steel, one brand new body at a time. So the next time you admire a flawless classic, ask yourself what it is you are really admiring. Maybe a classic was never really the metal at all, but the feeling it leaves behind. If that idea stays with you, subscribe. There is always another story waiting on the channel.